Much more drama in another game between Magnus Carlsen and Alireza Firouzja. It's the final of the Julius Beer Generation Cup, and this game is an absolutely must-see. There is something happening in this game which usually happens not at the highest level. You will find out what it is very soon. It's a fantastic, instructive game, a lot of chess content, and also some huge mistake. Let's find out what it is. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And here we go with Magnus opening with 1 e4. And true to his style, Firouzja is going for the most fighting move, c5. The Sicilian defense, knight f3, e6. Magnus doesn't want a lot of theory. He goes for the move d3, knight c6 and g3. A modest setup is the King's Indian attack, which can potentially lead to explosive play. Black goes for d5, so black is ready to take on e4 and swap the queens. Magnus doesn't want that. Played here the move queen to e2. Knight ge7, bishop g2, g6. And here black is intending to develop the bishop to g7. And Magnus says, well, first I'm going to play h4. So if I can get in this move h5, that rook from h1 will become pretty strong. Black played here the move h6. So that whenever you go for h5, black can block the position with the move g5. Now white closes the position with the move e5. Bishop g7, c3, and now instead of opting for a move like castling kingside, which is not very attractive as white is going to play for an attack with ideas like h5, I mean white's pieces are looking already quite dangerous, Firouzja decides here to keep that king on e8 and instead grab some space on the queen side with the move b5, bishop to f4, a5, knight bd2, white continues developing, and black is the first one to get in touch here on the queen side with the move b4. White challenges the pawn with a3, ready to take it. Pawn takes c3, b takes c3. Now the b file has been opened, and who is going to make use of that? Well, of course, with that rook still on h8, it's difficult for black to contest that file with both rooks. Black played the move a4, rook to b1. As you can see, white is first. The bishop comes out to a6, pressurizing the pawn on d3, which is still defended, but it's a bit annoying for white to deal with that pawn. White castled, and now the knight comes into f5. You can see that consciously black has decided to keep the king in the center. Maybe he really wants to keep it there and, for instance, put king at some point on e7 or d7. I'm not sure what his idea exactly is, but in that way, that rook from h8 can also join the game. White at some point probably wants to play a move like c4 and decided here to prepare with rook fc1. The idea of c4 is to challenge that pawn on d5, and on a good day that diagonal for the bishop on g2 can be opened. Black went for rook b8 and white dropped back with the knight from d2 to f1. His plan is to probably go for the move knight e3. The downside is that the b3 square has been weakened, and now it's black who jumps in with the rook to b3. He's ready to recapture and create a passed pawn, so white is not going to do that. But at the same time, how are you going to cope with a threat like rook takes a3? How strong is that threat in fact? Well, Magnus continued here with the plan of knight to e3. Rook takes a3, so that pawn is taken. Knight takes f5, g takes f5. And okay, you're a pawn down, and who knows, maybe that pawn will be dangerous. Well, actually not really. Rook a1 is played. Now rooks are coming off the board, and that rook is attacking that pawn on a4. If white does win that pawn back, he's in very good shape because he's controlling both the queen side and still has pretty good attacking chances against the king. Because what are you going to do with the king? If black is going to castle, then you can see that the pawn on h6 becomes a serious target, and also the double pawns, they are not helping black to guard his king. Now, if you defend the pawn with queen a5, was not played in the game, but to show you, white's going to play queen d1 to attack that pawn on a4. If you play a3, you would like to use your queen to hit that pawn one more time, but the queen also got to keep the pawn defended. Probably white will play bishop f1, then the queen is free to move again. You can put it on c1. Very soon that pawn from a3 will be eliminated. So black cannot really save the pawn. Decided here to play the move c4, so that you're attacking the pawn on d3. Queen c2 played, interesting move. If you do take on d3, there's queen takes a4 with the double attack, and white is getting the initiative on the queen side, hitting these minor pieces, and black has to be very careful. That d-pawn is not dangerous either, can be eliminated very soon. Therefore, instead of taking, black played here the move queen b6. White captures on a4. Anyway, the bishop is now twice attacked by queen and rook. And what are you going to do with that bishop? Well, if you drop back to b7, it's pawn takes c4. If you take back, it's knight d4. And here you see that white's pieces are coming alive. The knight on c6 is pinned. And white is going to win material. So the bishop, instead of going back to b7, went to b5. But now, you're hitting the queen. But look at this, queen a3. Fantastic idea. Ensuring that the king can't escape. And maybe at some point, there are some other attacking ideas. Well, black went for the move bishop f8 to attack the queen. But there's queen a8, check. Where is the king going? Hard to say. I mean, if you drop with your back with your knight to d8, for instance, bishop e3, the rook will come in. There are so many pieces joining the attack. I'm pretty sure black is not going to survive that. So black decided here to play the move king d7. King stays indeed in the center. Pawn takes c4, bishop takes c4, and the knight goes to d2 with the idea to take on c4, and if you take back, the d file will be open so the rook can potentially hit the king from that angle. Note that the rook a7 is not possible here as the knight and queen are both covering that square. So that's why it's knight d2 attacking the bishop. Bishop stays on the board, goes to d3, and white opens up the position here with the move c4. Excellent idea with the intention to take on d5. If black is gonna take on c4, now you do eliminate that main defender. Bishop takes c6, queen takes, and it's rook a7 check. The king doesn't have a square to go to. The only move is queen c7, but that's losing the queen. So black can't take that pawn. Played instead the move bishop g7 back, so that the rook hits the queen, the bishop defends the rook. Queen goes back to a4, pinning the knight, supporting the pawn, still looking absolutely great for white here. Queen d4, centralizing the queen, and now Magnus played here this move, rook to d1. So he's looking for some action on that d file, and note that the pawn on c4 can't be taken. If you do that, pawn takes c4, it's queen takes c6, you're winning a piece and it's game over. If you do take with the bishop instead, then there is knight takes c4, the queen defends the rook hits the queen, and if you take the knight, it's just queen takes c4 and the d-pawn is pinned and white is winning the queen. So that is not possible. What can you do here as black? Well, it's difficult to deal with that rook on d1. Bishop e2 played to tickle that rook, but now the bishop is no longer guarding the b1 square, so the rook goes there with the intention of entering on b7. Rook c8 played, so here you see that in case of rook b7, black can still block with rook c7. Now, there are a lot of interesting moves, but to be honest, I'm a bit surprised that the move bishop e3 was not played in the game. Looks like a very easy, simple way of playing, attacking the queen. For instance, if you do take the pawn, you take on d5. If you do take back, you bring another piece into the attack. There are so many simple moves. All your pieces are looking great. True, you're a pawn down, but look at black's king. It's in the middle. So many weak pawns, so many pieces are going to be hanging very soon. This is something Magnus should have sensed that it's completely winning for him. However, instead of bishop e3, there followed the move queen a3. White is intending to enter on d6 probably at some point, but there's bishop f8. And now the queen goes to a6. And well, you can, for instance, take the pawn on c4 and say that, okay, everything is perfectly under control. If you take back with the queen, things are not looking too bad. But now, down to 4 seconds, the following insane stuff is happening. Bishop c5, the bishop and queen are hitting the pawn on f2. And here again, even now, bishop e3, guys, it's the simplest move on earth. That's what I would have done instantly. You see, there's a threat, you deal with it. You make a counter and attack. This is such an easy move for Magnus to find, but he didn't play it. He had a different plan. He felt probably the pawn on f2. It's not an issue at all. He can take the pawn on d5, but here, guys, queen takes f2 check, king h2. And now both players are overlooking that here the queen on a6 is hanging. You can simply take a full queen and it's game over. And instead, Firouzja captured the pawn on d5, and Magnus, smile on his face, realized that he escapes here with moving the queen away. Check, and the game it's still going on. King d8 was played, and now, by the way, I should point out that rook c7, guys. There is e6 discovered check, and you're picking up the rook next, so that is game over. Therefore, king d8, but now you take on f7. Material is even, but look at that king and look at white's king. It's totally safe there in the corner. The rook covers the back rank. There's not a check possible on g1. Bishop e7 back. Queen takes pawn. White's up a pawn. King e8, queen g8. You're blocking with the bishop. You give another check with your queen. King to d8. And now it's queen f6. Another double attack. King e8 played. And now the rook can come in to b7 with the idea to give queen f7 check. If the king goes to d8, then you take the bishop. It's game over. Knight e7 played. This was all played with few seconds on the clock for both. But there is the move e6. And well, here it's time to resign because queen f7 cannot be avoided, followed by queen takes f8. What an incredible moment in that game as both players missed that a full queen was just hanging. I mean, in time trouble, anything can happen, even at the highest level. So hopefully that makes you feel more comfortable whenever you make a blunder yourself. It happens to all of us. Well, let me know what you think of this absolutely dramatic game. And well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and see you soon again.